barakah. Now, young people in Africa often face a unique set of challenges when striving to realize their true potential and personal growth. High rates of unemployment, limited access to quality education, and economic disparities within the continent can hinder their opportunities for development. Moreover, political instability, lack of infrastructure, and healthcare issues in some regions of Africa doesn't really help matters. But despite these obstacles, African youth display tremendous resilience and creativity. They're harnessing their talents and leveraging technology to address social and economic problems. One woman fighting for change in Africa and helping these youth realize their potential is marketing director, author, and self-development enthusiast, Fatema Dewji, who joins me from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Fatema, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Look, one thing's for sure, after researching your work, you have self-development and coaching very high on your agenda, especially empowering young people to get more out of their lives. Now, Fatema, some say that Africa faces significant challenges, including political instability, economic disparities, and infrastructure deficiencies, which really hinder its potential to become a global powerhouse. What do you have to say about this?
So, you mentioned all these challenges that are going on, but there's also a lot of development and there's a lot of change that's happening. So if you just look at East Africa, for example, we'll start with Rwanda. After the genocide in '94, because of focused leadership and their policies, now Rwanda is one of the safest and the most orderly countries in Africa. I was there last year for a conference, and being a woman, I could walk around at like 1:30, on the streets, and I feel completely safe, and this is something that if you just look at the span of 20, 25, 30 years, what a big change, Rwanda has gone through,
Right.
Also economically, they have so much going on. There's the Kigali Convention Center, that they're now trying to promote tourism heavily, the country. They're coming up with an entire innovation city, which they're focusing on a knowledge-based, technology-driven hub. They want to become the hub of technology and knowledge in the African continent. So that's just like Kigali, and then if you look at Dar es Salaam, for example, right?
Yep.
We have which is where I'm from. So Dar es Salaam is one of the fastest growing cities, not only but actually in the world, right?
Okay.
And it was a modest fishing village a century ago, right? And now it's a home to millions of people.
Wow.
If you're looking at the tourism, for example, right? We have one of the best tourism in the world, where there's so much potential. You have the Kilimanjaro, you have the Serengeti. I'm sure you've heard of all these landmarks, right? And it's bringing so much revenue to the country. In terms of like the transport infrastructure, there's so much going on. We're developing a railway system, which is going to boost a lot of trade within East Africa. In the hydroelectric power projects. There's a lot of private companies that are also doing a lot of development work. So like for me, for example, as the marketing director of METL, just recently we started a Mo Finance kind of structure to help Tanzanians and empower them to be able to become self-sufficient and buy the bikes. They call them bajajes, the boda-bodas, not the three-wheelers, but the bikes in the tuk-tuks, they call them bajajes in India.
The little scooters?
I don't know if so there's scooters, but there's also like three-wheelers. So if the reason I'm saying India is because everywhere, right? It's a mode of transportation. But for Tanzanians, this is one of the best ways for them to make money, right?
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to help them do this better through coming up with our own finance program, so that they're able to pay monthly installments instead of having to pay a bulk amount at the beginning, because again, remember that they don't have that money, right, to push up front.
Before we get into more the youth development opportunities for the youth and making them more self-sufficient, how come maybe I'm ignorant to the fact, but how come there's not much coverage on the great work that's been happening in Africa? Or is there?
I think there is actually. I think that my brother speaks on a lot of panels on what's happening in Africa, the investment opportunities that are
Yeah.
happening. I think that of course the development is slow, because there are, I'm just doing research because we're getting into e-commerce in a very big way,
Okay.
and I was just doing research just yesterday about what are some of the challenges that people are facing with coming up with a great e-commerce platform in Africa, right? Where
Right,
are the
right.
issues? So for example, when it comes to pumping in money, because e-commerce is a lot of huge investments, right? You need the right
Yeah.
infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So there are a few challenges, but I do believe that if you look at the scale of it, Africa is actually booming.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
so much potential. Tanzania itself, like so much infrastructure development, so much construction just in the last
Yeah.
like 20 years,
Yeah. 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 And you've seen that development since 15 years ago till now, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I graduated from university 15 years ago, and I when my friends come down, so a lot of my friends have after university decided to stay abroad,
Yeah.
and when they come back, they just tell me it looks like a completely different country,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and a lot of my friends are actually coming back to Tanzania because they're it's not the market is not as saturated,
Yeah.
so you are still able to come back and innovate and be able to actually start something and you know
Yeah. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
well at
Yeah.
it and also expand.
So essentially, the status quo of doom and gloom, that doesn't exist at all. And actually, that's a very ignorant comment.
I think that doom and gloom, I mean, if we look at countries around the world right now, especially with the current situation, you can say there's doom and gloom in a lot of developed countries, right? I think that we have a lot of positive things on our side. Political stability depends from country to country. Tanzania is
Of course.
actually very stable. We have a beautiful harmony between the Muslims and Christians. We're 50% Muslim, 50% Christian, but there's
Yeah.
such a beautiful relationship between that. There's no division in terms of culture. There's no division in terms of tribe, right? But this also goes back to after independence, what happened, our
Yeah.
president, what kind of social policies he put in place, right? So I
Yeah.
think Africa is if you cannot, it's not one shoe fits all,
No, of
right? Because
course.
there's
Of course. Yeah.
there's there's different political changes going on everywhere.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, I think that if you look at just the youth population, it's huge in Africa, right? You're looking at 60% are under 25 years old. So I believe in the next 20, 30 years, there's going to be a huge boom in innovation. There's going to be a huge, if things are put in the right place. So if
Yeah.
education is put in the right place, if healthcare is put in the right place, there's going to be a tremendous growth in Africa.
Inshallah. Inshallah. So tell us about, I guess, your workshops now for empowering young Africans and equipping them with what they need to be able to be successful in life. Tell us a bit more about that.
So, like I mentioned, there's a huge youth population. And, when I graduated from university, um, I came in and, I was working in finance because I actually studied finance. But
Yeah.
I came in and, I was doing a lot of research on the ground, and I realized like there is very little marketing going on. And if I don't take that on, we're going to be left behind, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of multinationals were pumping a lot of money into marketing. So
Yeah.
doing that, I just felt like there was not a lot of fulfillment in terms of just my life. So I started doing a few workshops here and there. They were not set up professionally, but I just wanted to have a feel of what was going on. So the workshops were on public speaking, on marketing, on development. Just a lot
Yeah.
of I was just testing like what's going on, and I realized that a lot of the youth unfortunately don't have access to this kind of opportunities, right? Like coming into a classroom, like everything is very theory in university, right? But coming to these sessions, they were able to connect with other people, network. They were able to also just think outside the box. So
Yeah.
up to now, I think I've written 2 books on marketing, which are mostly for the African market. The
Yeah.
first one is called Marketing for an African Powerhouse, and the other one is called Storytelling,
Okay.
and it's how to storytell to get your brand to another level.
Absolutely.
I've just finished my 3rd book, but that's more on spirituality. It's called The Alchemy of Self-Love,
Okay.
transforming your soul in micro moments.
You have
So
a
I've conducted.
podcast. You have a podcast on self-love, don't you? Yeah.
Yes, I do. So that's very interesting. I think that will go into where I talk a little bit about faith, because I
Okay.
think that's played a big role in the podcast. Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I've conducted about 100 workshops. The
Inshallah.
last one I did, which was really big, was at the University of Dar es Salaam. We had about 800 students show up, and it was
Wow.
on personal branding. And what I decided to do is, for me, I wanted to bring together Tanzanian influencers who started off, with very humble beginnings, and
Yeah.
how they were able to get to where they are through personal branding. And they
Yeah.
came and they spoke, and it was actually so amazing because I think that really helped the youth understand the potential that they have. That if they put in the work, and they start having a vision of their future,
Absolutely.
it's very possible to get to that level. So I'm
Inshallah.
constantly writing ebooks in English and Kiswahili on like AI, on like how to market on a shoestring budget,
Yeah.
how to create a database for your business. So these are all very practical, actionable, knowledge-based books that people can kind of
Fan-
they're able to actually use that content to progress.
Yeah, yeah. It's an easy like it's a step by step guide, essentially for anything that you need.
Yeah.
So look, you mentioned faith, and look, especially. Again, I've looked at your researched your accounts, and I've read a couple of articles about you, and it seems like you maintain your Shia identity quite strongly, your Muslim identity
Yeah.
quite strongly as well. So, how do you maintain your Shia identity operating in a very corporate and what some may say a cutthroat environment?
I've been in leadership for 13 years, and I think that it is the only thing, being a Shia, being a Muslim, is the only thing that has um, kept me sane in the corporate world. And I mean mentally, sane, dealing with, because I work with so many different kinds of people with so many different behaviors.
I can
And
imagine.
people all have their own stories, they have their own backgrounds, they have their own way of dealing with people. I work with just in marketing, I work with over 30 CEOs. Now
Yeah,
all of them have a different way of operating, and so many times I believe that my faith is what has kept me grounded. It's kept me empathetic. Yesterday this is really unbelievable, but I was thinking about Syed Jaffrey in the afternoon,
yeah.
because he's one of his talks on emotional intelligence. It completely changed my life.
Subhanallah.
It has changed my leadership. It has changed everything, because he talks about the significance of emotional intelligence. And I think our imams, the reason that we have so much love for them, the reason we have, so much of a connection with them, is because regardless of what was going on in their life, their emotional intelligence was so high. And I think
Absolutely.
as a leader, that is exactly what is needed. So I want to just give a few examples. So I usually go back to the letter of Imam Ali wrote to Malik Ashtar,
Yeah,
about governance, right? So if you look at just justice, right, he says, make sure your strictness should not be excessive and your leniency should not be excessive. And this is, again, true mark of emotional intelligence. Like, when you're dealing with people, be fair,
yeah,
maintain balance. When I first started, I was so lenient. I just wanted to make sure everybody was happy, and this cost me. So
yeah.
now, because of learning all this and how to navigate this, I'm able to be a better leader, and get my work done.
Yeah, yeah,
Humility,
yeah.
not being too proud. I think humility is key as a leader. Just being able to understand that you're not always right,
No, you're right.
taking
Yeah,
feedback. I've worked with so many CEOs that are like, they're 20, 30 years older than me, and most importantly, they have so much more experience than I do. And if I walk in the room thinking I'm your boss, I think that that is one of the worst things I can do for myself, right? So
absolutely.
for me, humility is what has helped me achieve everything in terms of learn, just grow as a person,
Yeah,
also win the hearts of people. It's so so important. So yeah, I
for
think
sure.
my faith is the
Because I've
foundation of my leadership.
absolutely, because I've noticed again, you've got a couple of 100,000 on, followers on Instagram, and you don't shy away from the fact that you're Shia. When it comes to Ashura, you mentioned Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Eid al-Khadir, you mentioned Imam Ali alayhi salam. You don't shy away from that fact. How comes? And the reason why I ask, by the
Because
way,
I
Fatima, the reason why I ask is a lot of people, especially in the corporate world, and this is all a matter of identity and how you want to hold on to your faith. A lot of people in the corporate world, especially in the UK, will shy away from mentioning they're even Muslim, let alone Shia, just because it's the fear of like rejection or the fear of not fitting in or being on the back foot all the time. Whereas you're pretty much very confident in saying, look, yeah, I am Shia, and I'm gonna
am a
offer what I
very
have to offer.
yeah, yeah, I'm a very proud Shia, and I every morning I say to myself, like, even if there is difficulty in my life, that I think that one of the things I'm most grateful for is that I'm a follower of Imam Ali. It is
Yeah,
something that has completely, it is who I am. It
yeah.
more than being a leader, a writer, all these titles, I believe they don't really mean much to me. I think that being a Shia and being a follower of such amazing individuals who are just, I don't know, they're just the light of everything,
Yeah.
that for me is the foundation of my life.
Inshallah. So I also saw that you're an avid Simba's fan when it comes to football. I think yourself and your brother are very much invested in,
Yeah.
in in football. So what opportunities is the new Africa Football League going to provide for local grassroots communities there?
So, first of all, I'm also the head of the Simba Queens, which is the female football team.
Oh,
So I
fantastic.
help them, a lot in terms of, yeah, in terms of development. I help them in terms of, like, coaching, bringing in, a lot of people who can help them outside the field, in terms of like mental health, how to be more focused, so that is something that I'm very passionate about. I think the it's very unfortunate that we lost to the Al Ahly team. Simba lost in Egypt,
I
so
think
we're
it was
out
a I
of.
think it was a VAR controversy or a penalty you should have got or something like that. No.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, football here in Tanzania is a religion. Yeah,
Oh, really?
it is. Yeah, people will spend that money. They will not eat, but they will go to a football game. Like, it is
Wow.
on another level. Yeah. So I think this league is so important because there's so much talent in Africa. And unfortunately, if you look at West Africa, because of the French presence, I think that they have a lot more access to development programs for youth. But I think if
Yeah.
you look at East Africa, it's this is where we don't have so much investment. So I think just putting them on this platform, people are going to be recognized, players are going to be recognized around the world, so that now, the international teams can actually scout out players from here. We're going to
Inshallah.
be Tanzania is going to be on the map, inshallah. So
Yeah.
I think that it will lead to a lot of development in football, in youth football, especially in Africa. So that's what
Yeah.
we're hoping for.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Yeah.
What's the next Simba's game that we can look forward to?
So now we have Champions League, and we have the CAF, and we have the Premier League. So we
Okay.
we have both.
All
So
right.
I think the next one is a team in Tanzania. We're playing a team in Tanzania,
Okay.
so it's always very heated.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
can imagine.
inshallah.
Inshallah khair.
Yeah.
I think they've got like 3 or 4 million followers on it, so it's quite a big team. Is Simba's the #1 team in Tanzania?
It is. It is the
All right.
number one
Okay.
team. But you're also asking a Simba fan, so
Yeah. Look, I guess I'm going to have to be a Simba's fan. I don't know anything about, unfortunately. I'm going to read up into it more, but I don't know. I think I'm going to have to be a Simba's fan and see how follow their progress. Hopefully, all the best. Look, marketing director, author, and coach Fatema Dewji, thank you so much for your time.
thank you too. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you so much.
All the best. All the best, inshallah. Brilliant. So,